welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm McKelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 39 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire series by George Martin. Today we're discussing chapter 38 of A Game of Thrones, Tyrion 5.
As always, we'll chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully, we'll provide you with some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what's happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the TV show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some reader mail. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide you some additional information about the characters and other things of note in this chapter. How are you, sir?
Well, pretty much the same as I was yesterday, and the day before, and the day before.
So again, for future listeners, we are still in coronavirus lockdown, so it is Groundhog Day. I mean, every day is the same, basically.
Yeah. Well, I made, I know we've talked a lot about your bread making, but I don't think we've ever mentioned my ice cream making.
Oh, that's terrible oversight.
I guess so. I made the base.
It's a sort of seasonal transition here.
That's right.
My bread making is very much a winter pastime.
Plus, I hear all the yeast is sold out all over the place.
Yeah, you know why? Because Carson panic bought.
Oh.
I've got enough yeast to last me a lifetime. Plus, it's too hot to bake. I'm not turning that oven on. Not doing that.
Well, I made the base that will make what will ultimately be tomorrow Snickers ice cream.
Oh.
So asked me to make.
I'm envisioning... So I hear you say making the base. This sounds way more complicated than I was anticipating. Is this a sourdough ice cream?
So it's basically a 24-hour process. You make the base, which is what your ice cream is going to turn into your ice cream. It's depending on if you're just making vanilla, let's say vanilla ice cream. It is whole milk, eggs, sugar, of course, a pinch of salt, and then you cook all that and you mix all that, and when that's done, you pour it into heavy cream, and since it's vanilla, you pour in vanilla. You then take that and you put it in the fridge for about at least 4 hours, preferably overnight. And then the next day, you pour that into the frozen bowl that is going to turn it into ice cream. It's going to mix it and turn it into ice cream. That's the very basic vanilla ice cream right there.
Wow. That does not sound terribly healthy.
No, oh Lord, no.
Okay, just checking on that. Yeah.
Stacy has a quota on how often I can make it. How's the push-ups coming?
I've been doing some push-ups.
Yeah.
Check out those guns.
Look at those guns. All right.
To be clear, McKelly and I have a video link.
Yes, we do.
He's not just pretending he can see it.
I'm pretending to be impressed. I mean, wait.
Yeah, you are pretending to be impressed. That much I can assure you. The problem is I don't have a very heavy weight. That my heaviest weight is 10 pounds.
Oh.
So I can't really... I'm not going to come out of this looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, really, am I?
It does help to have a fairly stocked home gym like we have here in the old basement.
I mean, I've got an 8-pound too, so I put them both in my hand and do bicep curls.
There
so,
you go,
that's not nothing. Yeah. And it hurts my fingers because I have to sort of clutch them like a claw, so I don't drop them on my feet.
Which is also strengthening your grip, so
that's
your
true.
My grip are going to get beefed up too.
Exactly. All right, let's get down to business with a quick recap of what Tyrion was up to last time we saw him. Last we saw him, he, Cat, and the rest of the band limped their way into the Vale. His situation had improved immensely since Cat took him captive at the inn at the crossroads. Well, it went through a low point and then sort of slowly crept back up again. He's no longer wearing chains, he's armed, and he seems to have become quite close with the sellsword Bronn. He travelled through the Vale with Cat and her uncle, but was left at the Gates of the Moon when Cat went on to the Eyrie. Last we heard, little Robert wanted to make him fly. So, yeah, it's not all good news for Tyrion.
That's true.
McKelly, why don't we give them the summary?
So we find Tyrion in a dungeon cell. But unlike most dungeon cells, this one has plenty of fresh air and sunlight. So it's got that. It's open on one end, giving him a full view of the 600 feet between the Eyrie and the way castle named Skye below. Tyrion is guarded by a dim-witted man named Mord, who likes to torment Tyrion, mostly by gratuitously dumping Tyrion's food, but he's also not averse to a whack upside the head.
That made me laugh. Tyrion thinks back to how he got himself thrown in the cell. When brought in front of Lysa and Robert Arryn, she'd referred to him as the man who killed his father, Jon Arryn. Tyrion responded with a cynicism that did not do him any favours. He followed that up with threats of death from his brother Jaime if he should be harmed. The Arryns might have had him thrown out of the moon door, the traditional Arryn mode of execution, then, if Cat had not stepped in and stopped it.
So to a sky cell Tyrion went. He has time to ponder whether his siblings might have actually been involved in the murder of Jon Arryn and the attempt on Bran. But the different styles of the plots make him wonder if a third party might have been involved. The only way to find out is to get out of this cell, so he hatches a plan to talk his way out. He convinces the jailer that he'll make him rich if he'll deliver a message to Lysa that he's ready to confess his sins.
Maud is no match for Tyrion and does as asked. Julie Savardis brings Tyrion back to the High Hall. Tyrion even manages to get his cloak back from Maud on the way. He better hope he doesn't get sent back.
Yep.
Tyrion sees familiar faces but few friendly ones. Only Bronn gives him any hope. As promised, he lists his sins, to the amusement of many in the hall, but not the Tully girls. Oh no.
Oh no. Cat reminds him of the matters at hand, and Tyrion again denies involvement. Lysa wants him back with Mord, but Tyrion demands a trial. Lysa happily agrees to let Robert Arryn sit in judgment and shows him the moon door, which will be his likely next port of call. So Tyrion demands a trial by combat.
The Knights of the Vale are all eager to act as Lysa's champion. Tyrion asks that Jaime Lannister be his. Lysa says the fight is tomorrow. Tyrion's desperate now and asks Marillion to make sure that her unfairness is recorded in song. As Tyrion thinks he's made a terrible error, Bronn calls out that he will act as Tyrion's champion.
Yeah.
So pretty much a great result for Tyrion.
Yeah.
Savardis Egan is the man who's going to champion for Lysa, but he's no mug. He can wield a sword,
right.
But Bronn is very recently battle tested and
Yes.
hardened, and he knows a thing or two as well.
Yeah, he's a pretty good fighter, so we've heard. And Savardis Egan is the head of the Arryn household guard, so he's probably fairly good with a sword as well. But at least it's something. He's got something here.
Yeah. And by the laws of the realm, a win for Bronn proves Tyrion's innocence. It's not just that he can walk away. It's proof that he was innocent of the charge.
Right.
So if Bronn does win, they've got to let Tyrion go. Nothing else they can do. There's no double jeopardy here.
So the chapter starts with Tyrion in his sky cell ruminating about how he ended up there, and he's kind of giving a description of the cell, and it's like I mentioned in the chapter summary, he can see the Way Castle sky 600 feet below him, and that's the highest of the three Way Castles.
so if the fall to sky doesn't kill him, then the continued falls
Right.
down to well, that'll take care of him. Is that what you're saying?
And to make matters worse, the floor slopes toward the open wall. He can't even sleep because if he falls asleep, he's afraid he's going to roll over and roll himself out into the blue.
Yeah, but I see some advantages of this kind of cell because, I mean, obviously in jails generally, sewage is a problem.
Right.
But
Yep.
here you have a almost infinitely large facility to throw your waste into.
Yep. Good point.
And I would like to mention that you might think that manning the fort sky is a cushy job for a Vale knight or
right.
sworn sword, but there is now the threat of aerial bombardment from 600 feet above of the prisoner's waist. I just want to say that.
Among other things, I mean, you could have a prisoner as well fall from 600 feet.
That's true. Yes, Maud should possibly contact them before hurling one out.
Right.
You know? I wonder if the sky door goes a different way.
Oh
as
yeah,
to
the
avoid
moon,
that.
the moon door.
The moon door. Sorry,
Yeah,
I was listening to an old episode last night, and I noticed that we often do this. I called Winterfell King's Landing, and we didn't pick it up.
Oh yeah, we do.
We do that one quite a lot.
Those two we seem to confuse more than everything else. Sometimes we'll get names confused, like Ned and Robert or something, but we do Winterfell and King's Landing a lot.
I think in the same episode, I called Vias Dothrak, I called it Carl Dothrak. And we didn't pick up on that either.
Well, you know.
The things we miss.
Doing the best we can here, people.
So in the cell, Tyrion recalls the shame he felt that Bronn had to carry in the last leg of the journey. I mean, it was a harrowing journey. They worked hard for many days, and Tyrion does have leg problems, so
right, yeah.
You know, it's not entirely unforgivable, but nevertheless, when he arrived in the Eyrie, he was mad and put out that, you know, and ashamed of the fact he'd been carried the last part of the way.
Yeah, it didn't help his mood any, that's for sure.
Exactly, and so he was lashing out in anger. Although what he said is not that strong, really. I mean, he's in a position where he needs to threaten.
I guess, although after him sitting there in the sky cell for Lord only knows how long, he seems to think that he should have just kept his mouth shut and his head down at that point.
Right, he thinks that, but when he thinks back on the conversation, to be honest, it wasn't that. It was fairly benign. I think he was ending up in the sky cell no matter what he said. You know.
Yes.
Because where else would they put him? Give him a guest room?
I wondered about that. I wondered if he had kept his mouth shut and did all of those things he was supposed to do without confessing anything. Would they have treated him like a hostage? You know, there's a lot of royal or highborn hostages that are treated pretty well when they're a hostage. I don't know that he was going to get this treatment because he's being accused of double homicide, basically. Or one homicide and another attempt at a homicide.
Yeah, and the homicide is of the lord of that region.
Yeah, so I think he was probably going to end up in the sky cell regardless, was what I got out of it.
And also, actually, if you think about it, he is a slippery and dangerous character. If you gave him the run of the Eyrie, now sure, he can't escape. There's no way he could escape.
Right.
I mean, he had to be carried up there, you know. I mean, how's he going to get down?
Right.
But he would, if you gave him the run of the place, it would not take him long to have friends.
Yep.
And with his, you know, reputed wealth, he'd be able to bribe people to his side if he couldn't convince them.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time it came to a trial or something, he might have many friends in that hall.
Yep.
Instead of just one.
Right.
So I think strategically, if I were Kat or Lysa, I would not treat him as a guest. I would treat him as a prisoner and keep him. Yeah, let him bribe Maud.
Right. Let him hang with Maud for a while.
For all the good it'll do him. So
Lysa mentions to him that, you know, he's surrounded by the Knights of the Vale, and all of them would die for her. And Tyrion responds with, "If something happens to me, my brother Jaime would be pleased to see that they do."
Yeah,
So that was the first barb he fired out there.
It's a good comeback too.
Yeah, that was good. He's good with those comebacks. He's witty.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Yeah. But then Lysa comes back to him, asks him, can he fly? If not, he needs to watch his threats.
Right.
And that gets Robert all excited. He wants to see the bad man fly.
Yeah. And it looks like Lysa's going to allow him. I mean, maybe she was just doing it for effect, but she let the knights pick Tyrion up and start carrying him toward the moon door until Kat mentions, "Hey sister, this is my prisoner and I prefer him not to be harmed."
Yes. That's very prudent of you, Kat.
Yes. It made me think that Lysa's really changed her tune from the last time she and Kat were talking, when she couldn't believe that Kat would bring Tyrion here and cause trouble with Lannisters, which is what she was trying to avoid, and now she is treating this Lannister prisoner rather hostily.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I mean, that perhaps goes to her. I said an interesting point. That perhaps goes to her being quite unstable, really, because you're absolutely right. I mean, if you are afraid of what this could bring upon you, then ship them out.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
say here you've got here I'll give you a contingent of guards to take you back to King's Landing
Right.
to have him stand trial.
Yeah.
They'll protect you both on the road.
Yeah. Exactly.
But you're absolutely right. She's completely changed her mind. Now she wants to kill the guy, basically in cold blood.
Yeah. Yeah. So because he ran his mouth, he ended up in. He did get a guest room, and it has a really great view. Not a whole lot of amenities and pretty awful room service. So
Yes, not the best. Yeah.
no.
So thinking about the excitement and sort of ghoulish pleasure that Robert Arryn is taking in the thought of him being pushed out of the moon door. So the moon door, as we mentioned in the recap, is it's a door which basically just goes out to nowhere, and they push people out of there as their form of execution, and presumably it's pretty effective.
Yeah.
Apart from those who can actually fly. Yeah. So Robert Arryn is sort of skipping with delight at the thought of Tyrion being pushed out of the moon door, and that makes Tyrion sort of shudder at the thought of how many people the, as he puts it, snot-nosed little wretch Robert Arryn had already sent through that door.
Yeah. Yeah. It made me think that he's 6. I don't think he gets exactly what's, the ramifications of shoving someone out that door. He sees them fly away and probably thinks that's a pretty neat pastime,
Yeah. I wouldn't let him have the key to that door.
No. But I'm not sure he fully grasps. Yeah, maybe he does. I'm trying to think like a 6-year-old. It's been a while. I'm not sure he fully gets what happens.
Yeah.
When,
but I mean, it's the kind of thing where a good parent would teach you what it means, and he doesn't have one.
Yeah, key word there is good.
Yeah.
He's got a parent.
And of course, I mean, he must be new to the Eyrie. I mean, I don't know if he was born in King's Landing, but I mean, he's certainly all the life that he can remember has been in King's Landing.
Right.
So this is the first time he remembers being in the Eyrie. So however many he's executed has been just in the last couple of months.
Yeah, that's a solid point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. It does beg the question, though. I mean, so obviously Tyrion's thinking this, and so it's Tyrion's perspective. It does beg the question: are the Arryns, at least the current incumbents of the High Office, actually quite brutal and cruel?
Right.
When we're thinking about the people in the book, we tend to think in fairly black and white. The Starks, steadfast and upright; the Targaryens, murderous and monstrous; the Lannisters, cruel and avaricious. If you extrapolate that, you think that the allies of the Starks are good and decent, kind and beneficent. But it might be that under Lysa and Robert's rule, the Vale might actually be a place of tyranny and brutality.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, no one can stand up to them because they are in charge. But is it a happy place with singing and laughter, or is it actually a sort of North Korea kind of thing?
Right, yeah. My whole Shire meets Rivendell thing might just be tossed out the moon door.
Yeah, if Elrond was a murderous 6-year-old.
Right. I mean, that's the problem. I think anywhere where you're being led by, and in what seemingly more and more that we get to know her, an insane woman and a child, you're going to have some problems.
Yeah. I mean, it's only what Tyrion thinks, and he has very good reason to fear it, because if that thought is true, then he's in big trouble.
Right. Yeah.
because as you say, just as you said, the calculus for Lysa Arryn should be, I don't want this guy's blood on my hands.
That was what we thought it was supposed to be.
Right. If what she told Cat originally was correct, she doesn't want this. And Tyrion might be banking on that. But now he's met them, he's now thinking they're murderous and lunatics. And here I am in their clutches,
Yeah.
I think he might be onto something. I think it's too soon to tell.
Right.
I can't imagine they've marched hundreds out of that door in the last few months.
Wouldn't think so.
if they've marched more than a couple, then that's a little bit unpleasant.
Yeah. So we get back to the cell. Tyrion's done reminiscing, and he's back to the current time of him sitting in the cell, which he's been doing for days. He never says exactly how many days, but you get the idea he's been there a while because he's starving. Mord, the jailer, is known for bringing him food, which is good, but he's also known for spilling the food out the open wall there. So he's also cold and exhausted, and he's really concerned that he's not going to last much longer. He thinks, he originally thought, I'm not going to be here very long. They're going to want to talk to me. They just want to humble me, and they'll come get him soon. But he is no longer sure about that. And that made me wonder, what is Kat's plan? I mean, I guess she doesn't have the authority, so maybe she's been arguing for, let's interrogate this guy, and Lysa's been saying, no, he's got to sit there longer. But I don't really know exactly what Kat's plan is, because Tyrion's right. I don't know how much more he can take of the abuse he's been getting here in this cell.
Yeah. And as he said, killing him is guaranteed war.
Right.
So he's teetering on the edge, both literally and metaphorically. And you're right. None of his opponents seems to have a logical plan in place.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's got out of Kat's hands. She came this way thinking she would find an ally. But actually, in some ways, it doesn't matter. If Lysa was completely sane, what's the best outcome? They just sit there with him as a hostage forevermore? I mean,
yeah, that's right.
You can't.
What do they do?
You can't kill him for sure, because that's definitely war.
Yeah.
You don't want to let him. If you want to let him go, don't even accost him at the end of the crossroads. Right. So it is. Yeah, all the more you're thinking she should have just fled north.
Yeah.
Say, I'm going to my sister's in the Eyrie, and then go north.
Right, do the opposite of what she did.
Because at least in the north, you're in a position of you've got the ultimate authority.
Right. Yeah, they're playing awfully fast and loose with both Tyrion's life and realm-wide war here, with just leaving him in the care of this clearly not very intelligent brute of a jailer.
So Tyrion thinks about how he might get out of this, and one of the things he thinks about, which I think is a smart idea, is once word reaches King's Landing, and he knows it will, and we know it has, is if Cersei demands of King Robert that Robert himself sit in judgment of Tyrion.
Yep.
So first and foremost, that would get him out of the Vale,
right,
and into friendlier territory. But also, and I wanted to sort of discuss this with you, see what you thought. I actually think Robert. Well, now I'm going to undermine myself. Let me say what I was going to say. I think Robert would evaluate the evidence and come to a fairly just ruling. On this.
Robert make a just ruling? must have been an accident.
No, I think he would, because when you're presented with the evidence that she's got, everything is deniable. I mean, there's no evidence linking him to Jon Arryn's death at all.
Absolutely, yes.
Other than Lysa's random claim. The only evidence linking him to Bran's fall is that he was present in Winterfell when Bran fell.
Yep.
And the only thing linking him to the assassination attempt on Bran is the dagger that others have claimed was his.
Yep. I agree.
Which, again, there's two lines of denial there. One is, it isn't mine. The other one is, it is mine, but I didn't give it to someone to murder someone.
Yeah.
That would be stupid.
The evidence is not exactly ironclad here in this situation.
Right. Exactly. So I think Robert would find. Now, I almost undermined myself by saying, wait a minute, though. I'm thinking back to Lady. And his judgment was not 100% sound there. It was twisted and perverted by Cersei's influence on him.
Which I think might happen in this case as well.
But in this case, that would lead to the correct answer.
Yes, exactly.
In Lady's case, it led to the wrong answer. But here, we would find the innocent man would be freed.
So like I said, he'd make a just call by accident.
Right, okay.
Because it's the easiest one to make.
And now I pronounce, and then Cersei goes, oh, I'll kill you if you don't. Oh, give me a second. He's innocent. Oh, okay.
But he also wonders if... so he's thinking about what's going on outside his 3 walls that he has. And he's wondering if Jaime is already marching to his defense. Then he also wonders, which way is Jaime marching? Is he marching north based on Cat's ruse? Or has Cat's ruse been foiled and he will be marching toward the Vale?
You know what, actually? Cat's ruse might hold up here because he might march north to rescue Tyrion, and he might march north immediately that news reaches him, and he might use the smart tactic of taking a ship and going around Moat Cailin and ending up in the north.
What an idea.
Where he would... And all the time on the ship, the news that she pulled a trick would slowly trickle out, but not to the people on the ship.
Right.
So he would basically invade the north and find it empty.
Yes. I wondered, in my mind it went like this. People are questioning the eyewitnesses, and they're like, well, which direction did they go? And they were like, well, the damnedest thing, she kept saying she was going to Winterfell, but then she rode east to the Eyrie. So either she doesn't know what direction north is,
or I've forgotten.
One of us is confused. It's either her or it's me.
Yeah. We don't know. We don't know if anyone spotted her change of direction. And we don't know exactly how she did it. If she just walked straight out of the crossroads east, then yes, somebody would have spotted that. But if she did go north for a mile and then jag east, maybe. Right. It's still holding. So Tyrion fears that both his siblings might allow themselves to be blinded by the slight in this situation to the possibilities of it.
Yep. He refers to Cersei as having a low cunning, and I think he says something like it's her pride that gets in the way, and that Jaime is even worse. He's rash and headstrong, and he's never untied a knot that he couldn't just slash. He proved that just the last time we saw him, when he slashed a whole bunch of knots in his confrontation with Ned.
Yes.
So
yes.
He knows his family pretty well, I guess.
Yeah. So Tyrion obviously really is innocent.
Yep.
Robert, we're pretty sure, would not find him guilty with or without his wife's influence over him.
Right.
Unless stronger evidence against him transpires, unless Peter Baelish can really prove it was his knife or something.
Based on the fact that he's having internal thoughts about, I wonder who it was that committed these crimes, there can't be a whole lot more solid evidence to find unless there's more planted evidence out there.
So does that mean then that everybody who is a POV character is innocent of these crimes because someone would give it away?
That's right.
I woke up this morning and the sun was shining and I remembered killing Jon Arryn. Actually, that's a point worth pondering, actually, because we have mentioned before that we don't have very many POVs outside of the Starks, really.
Yeah.
We have Tyrion and we have Daenerys, and then everybody else...
Yeah, so far, Tyrion and Daenerys.
Is right. And so that means, I wonder if we're not getting POVs of certain characters because they carry this guilt.
Sure. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. I mean, you could... Because it would be... Martin could just write it that they don't think about that particular detail, I guess. But
it'd be hard to write about Cersei without thinking about Jon Arryn's murder.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Good point.
Because it'd be great to have Cersei as a POV character at this point. We'd be fascinated to have her inner thoughts.
Yeah.
Or Varys, or Peter Baelish, or any of these people. It would be interesting to know what they know.
Yeah. Good point.
And he's avoiding it so that we have this mystery.
Yeah, the mystery would be solved real quick if we had everyone's POV.
So, if they could bring the trial to King's Landing, the enemies of the Lannisters would all have to reveal themselves to be, if not lying, then foolishly injudicious. You know, as Cat has been here.
If they did that, it would certainly hurt their standing and give the Lannisters a much stronger hand.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yeah, for instance, if there was a trial of Tyrion Lannister in King's Landing in which the prosecution was Cat Stark, and Robert inevitably finds him not guilty, can Ned Stark stay on as Hand of the King? I mean, technically he's not Hand of the King at the moment.
If he were.
Recognize this. If he were Hand of the King.
Right.
She doesn't know that. We know that.
Right. He also wonders about the 2 crimes that he's now charged with, which he's particularly bothered by the addition of the murder of Jon Arryn, just because he happens to be, well, it's either just because he happens to be the nearest Lannister or because Lysa's completely crazy. One or the other. Somehow he's also been given this charge as well. And another thing that got him into some trouble when he was first in the High Hall in front of Robert and Lysa is Lysa, reads him his charges that he's been charged with, and one of them is she refers to him to Robert. She says, "This is the imp Tyrion Lannister. He killed your father." And Tyrion says, "Him too? I've been a busy little fellow. How would I have time for all this murdering?"
Yeah.
So yeah, he's thinking about that, and I was thinking the accusation coming out of Lysa's mouth might be a bit alarming if I'm Cat, because so much of all her theories are based on the letter that she received from Lysa saying Cersei Lannister killed Jon Arryn. Kind of everything else is built off of this concrete bit of information, and you're starting to see she just seems to throw accusations left and right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, I mean, obviously everything Lysa has said and done since Cat arrived must be filling Cat with dread about her decision. But that one in particular, it must be like, well, what the? And also, it's really bad news in terms of the chances of him getting out of there, because you could imagine a fair trial around the attack on Bran. But It's hard to imagine getting a fair trial on the murder of Jon Arryn in the Eyrie.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Especially with Lysa and Robert at the helm.
I don't know anybody's getting a fair trial with Robert and Lysa at the helm.
Yeah. So Tyrion speculates whether his siblings might be to blame for these murders. He had suspicions about their part in Bran's fall, if you remember. Not immediately, but he noticed at breakfast in Winterfell that they shared a look when they discovered Bran was going to survive, and he noticed that. He hadn't thought much about Jon Arryn's demise. He was an old man who died, these things happen. And
that made me wonder, it's just a thought I had when I was reading the chapter. Could Jaime's timing of attacking Ned have anything to do with the fact that Ned was just coming from that brothel? If Jaime or the Lannisters in general were involved with Jon Arryn's death, maybe that timing was not coincidental. Just an idea.
Another good point, McKelly. You're winning this. You're crushing me. Because we just assumed that it was all about Tyrion. He'd got wind of the news of Tyrion. But thinking back on the Jon Arryn thing, when Jon Arryn went to see Gendry and when he went to the brothel, he wound up dead.
Exactly what I was trying to get at.
When Ned did the same 2 things, he ended up severely wounded.
Right.
So, but the difference between those 2 things is that Jon Arryn was very quietly and carefully murdered, whereas Ned was very publicly and loudly attacked.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure that it has anything to do with it. It just made me... It was a question that popped in my head worth mentioning.
Of course, Tyrion's arrest might give Jaime the opportunity to commit the murder in a more public setting than he could with Jon Arryn. With Jon Arryn, they had to do it quietly and subtly.
Oh, yeah.
With Ned, they wanted to do it, but they've got a pretense to do it loudly and in public.
I had
That
not
being
thought
said,
of that.
he didn't actually kill him.
Right, yeah. I really don't know the two things have anything in common.
He did give him other things to think about, though.
Right, yeah.
You know, if you're thinking, "Oh, he's getting close to this, let's give him some other things to think about," kill Jory Cassell and snap his leg
Right,
into it.
yeah. Good point.
I too would be distracted from my train of thought.
So then Tyrion wonders about the two crimes, and it occurs to him that they are very different in their level of sophistication, let's say. Jon Arryn's death was very deftly done, and really nobody thought about murder until Lysa started her wild theories, which we're now realizing she might just have wild theories that she throws in every direction. But yeah, and that claim is holding a lot less water nowadays than it was at the time.
Yeah, but so I mean, I know you've got a sort of second half to this point, but can I just interject with?
Absolutely.
Did we have any evidence that he did actually die of being poisoned?
Varys told Ned that Jon Arryn was murdered for asking
that's
questions by Tears of Lys.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else has specifically said Jon Arryn was murdered, aside from Lord Varys.
So anyway, finish the second half of your thought, which I interrupted. So Jon Arryn's death was deftly done.
But what happened to Bran was far less professional. There was the botched hurling Bran from a window, which we know how that happened, and then the amateurish assassination attempt. Very different. One, very well thought out, very carefully executed. The other, almost like a child, was put in charge of it.
Yeah. The of course we know that the hurling out of the window was a crime of passion thing. It wasn't
Right.
really thought through. But yeah, that you're absolutely right. The assassination attempt is Tyrion is right. The secondary assassination attempt on Bran did not have the subtlety nor the success of the murder of Jon Arryn, if murder
Right.
it was.
And that has him wondering if maybe there's a third party involved here. His phrase is something like, maybe the lion and the direwolf are not the only beasts in the woods.
Yeah. Although, why just one? I mean, that's the thing. He doesn't really think a Lannister is involved in either of these crimes. Well, okay, he has a suspicion about Bran.
Right. He thinks to himself, he wonders which sibling it was that put I think he calls him a footpad, up to the
Right.
attempt to kill Bran.
Yeah. So that's right. He does only need one third party. He doesn't need a fourth party.
Yeah, but so it leaves us with, if you're thinking about third parties, obviously one that would jump to mind would be Peter Littlefinger Baelish, mostly because he seems to have been lying about Tyrion and the dagger.
Right.
What would motivate Littlefinger to want to kill Bran, other than maybe to increase tensions between the Starks and the Lannisters? But again, why? What benefit is it to him?
Yeah. But the only possibility there, I mean, just a sort of like a related possibility, is that he's plotting after the fact. Somebody else sent the assassin. He sees the knife and then just pretends that it's Tyrion Lannister's at that point.
Yes.
He's never seen that knife before. The whole backstory of the knife is just made up on the spot.
I like that. I absolutely agree with that.
But again, why?
Well,
why are you trying to do this?
My thought on why is, why create tension? Why continue to escalate the tension between the Lannisters and the Starks? The reasons I was coming up with were things like to create chaos so that he can rise in rank, it maybe to Hand of the King, or something happens to Robert Baratheon, he could maybe be King Regent to Joffrey. That's what I got.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously ambitious, so yeah. Unless it's some long-range plan of getting Cat Stark somehow.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard to imagine how it works, but
that's certainly a possibility. So, like I said, that's just one possible culprit. Could there be someone else aside from a Lannister or Littlefinger to have killed Jon Arryn?
Well, again, going back to that conversation between Varys and Mopatis, there was definitely some sense of at least awareness, if not culpability there, and it didn't seem like they were in league with either of those two groups, the Lannisters or Littlefinger.
Right.
So,
yeah, there is definitely another group out there.
Yeah, so they could be suspects, but again, it's they themselves. I mean, they themselves as suspects are about as interesting as the footpad who was sent to kill Bran. It's like, who do they represent? That's the question. I mean, what's their play? In the same way, what is Littlefinger's play? But I guess the same thinking that applies to Littlefinger could apply to Varys. I mean, he too could want to go higher than the small council.
Sure, yeah. I wondered, so I was thinking about if the murder attempt on Bran could have been for something other than to silence him. I was trying to think what other things there could have been to try and kill a little boy other than to silence him for what he knows about Cersei and Jaime. And I was wondering, maybe end the Stark male line one child at a time. You start with Bran because he's the easiest. Then you pick off Robb. And I mean, that's it, right? There's no other... Oh, wait.
From the moment you started talking, I knew there was a Rickon joke brewing. I could just tell. That's good. I'll give you that one. Okay, so Tyrion convinces Mord, his jailer, with a promise of much gold to tell Lysa that he's ready to confess his sins. Mord almost kills him in accepting this.
Eventually, Tyrion does prevail on Mord, and Mord goes off and tells Lysa, and eventually Sir Vardis Egan comes back in the middle of the night and brings Tyrion up to the High Hall to meet with Lysa, and that's where the next action begins.
Yeah, so in the High Hall, Tyrion sees a lot of stern faces, and his travelling companions, none of whom are exactly his friends. The closest he's got is Marillion, whose hand he broke, and Bronn, who does appear to be somewhat friendly.
Yeah.
But they lock eyes, but nothing passes between them. But he is happy to see Marillion not because he's in league with him, but he knows that a singer will not be able to keep quiet about what he sees. He will write songs, and then he will go and sing them, and the story will reach every ear in the kingdom before too long. So he's glad of that.
It's good to have the press around when you're trying to prevent a conspiracy from happening.
Yeah. So Tyrion confesses his sins, and he was never ever going to confess the crimes he's actually accused of. He confesses his sins, which are whoring and cheating and
rather comical.
Yeah. He does a good job. Although when we get to the TV show, he was much funnier in the TV show.
Oh yeah.
He lists his crimes he lists his sins individually from the age of 7. And they're very funny. They even get Robert Arryn standing up and laughing and clapping his hands, and when Lysa cuts him off, Robert says, no, I want to hear the end of it.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. So of course he does get cut off. The Tully girls again are not laughing at his jokes.
Clearly this is just a means to an end, just to get him in front of the council again.
Yeah, although it's hard to know what his plan is, really.
Yeah, they mentioned, we kind of skipped over this, one little sentence. When he finally gets Mord's attention, he says, give Lysa a message for me, and then he thinks, what do I want to tell Lysa? And then this whole idea hits him, and we never really hear what it is, but when he gets up there, he looks at all the faces, and he stares at Bronn, a long, meaningful, wondering look. So you start to get the idea Bronn is somehow involved in his plan.
But do you? See, all right, let's wait. Let's come back to that, because I want to discuss that in some detail. So Cat, after interrupting the list of sins, he says you're accused of the attempt on Bran's life and conspiring to kill Jon Arryn. That's a much better accusation than Lysa's throwing around.
Right.
Just to be, I'm glad Cat got to be the spokesperson of the court. She's trying to sort of tread that fine line between appeasing Lysa and not throwing out random accusations against somebody she actually wants to accuse of something.
Right, yeah. You're right. She handled that fairly well. Because clearly she'd never heard that before. If Kat had heard that before, we would know.
Yeah. Tyrion, of course, says, I can't confess to those crimes because I know nothing about them. So Lysa wants him thrown back in the cell, but now he springs his trap. Is this how justice is done in the Vale? That's why he hoped she'd send for a large audience and that Marillion was there. He wants to pin her down to honouring a request for a trial.
Yeah, and what I thought about that was she invited a good portion of the powerful houses in the Vale to come listen to him confess his sins. And now this is going to possibly backfire on her a little bit. Because if it was just her and Kat and maybe some like Sir Vardis Egan, and she could just throw him back in the cell. There would be no one to corroborate the story.
Right, yeah. They could just send him back, yeah, no problem. But he's shamed them, and so now you're right, I think he is springing a trap here, but it is a trap that seems to, this is what I want to talk about, it's a trap that's pretty loose.
Yeah, it could go either way.
As far as I can see. Yeah, you could easily lose this one. Lysa agrees to the trial. She doesn't really have much of a choice, but she realizes it doesn't matter because her son will find him guilty, and then he'll be throughout the moon door.
Yep.
But then Tyrion completes his trap by saying, well, no, I'm innocent. The gods know it. I'll take a trial by combat.
Yes, which seems like an even better idea at first for some reason. We'll get to why everybody thinks this was such a great idea at first. But yeah,
well, yeah, they all think it's a great idea because he's not going to be able to win. I mean,
right?
He's.
It just seems like they should have known a little better how the rules work.
Right. Stop stealing my pedantry.
Oh, sorry. That's right. Sorry.
So the Vale men all laugh at Tyrion for demanding trial by combat. But he has proven himself on the journey to the Vale to be not completely hopeless. And you can call for champions, which is what both sides do. Lysa doesn't fight him. She calls for a champion and she appoints Savardis Egan.
Yes.
Did it not occur that Tyrion might call for somebody? Tyrion calls for Jaime Lannister. Who better? I too would call for Jaime Lannister, the finest sword in the land. And also 2 weeks ride away.
In hindsight, knowing how this ends, going with Jaime Lannister probably would have been the Arryn/Stark's best option, because I mean, you put him back in that cell. You say, "Yeah, we sent a letter. We sent a bird. It hasn't gotten there yet. It'll get there. You know, we'll let you know as soon as we hear something." Meanwhile, he's stuck with Mord, looking at the 600-foot drop.
Honestly, if I were Kat, I would have said to Lysa, no, let's make it be Jaime. In fact, don't even bother sending a raven. Give me the note. I'll go. And then when I hit the crossroads, I turn right and I go back north and I just wash my hands of all this mess.
I don't know what they're talking about. I was nowhere near this.
My sister looks quite a lot like me. You're probably mistaking me for her. But after a long pause, Bronn says that he'll stand for the dwarf, and you can feel Kat slapping her forehead because she knows that he could win this.
Yeah.
She knows he could win this. But worse still, I thought about this a little bit more. Worse still, this is an absolute no-win situation now for Kat.
Yep.
On the one hand, if Vardis Egan kills Bronn, then Tyrion's going out of the moon door and the whole world has gone to hell in a handbasket. If Bronn beats Savardis, her prisoner's walking out the door and she can't do anything about it. Walking out the non-moon door.
Right. The one that has ground underneath it.
Yes. With steps and things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're right. But ultimately, when she took him captive, it was, I mean, we were going to come to this situation anyway, ultimately, at some point.
Yeah, in many respects, she would have been better off taking him to King's Landing.
Yeah.
And having a trial there, let the truth come out.
Right.
So the thing I wanted to talk about is was this planned? Because when they looked at each other, there was no wink.
Right.
Or anything like that. They just looked at each other and then they carried on. Was Tyrion sure that Bronn was going to do this? Had they already talked about this? Or was Tyrion just hoping that his friendship with Bronn would see him volunteer?
And that Bronn, being a sellsword, saw the long-term potential of this. You free him from this certain death, he's really going to owe you now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he owes... If you think about it, it's not just saving you from death. It's being the only person who could possibly save you from death.
Right.
And coming through for it. And risking your life, because Savardis Egan is no mug.
Yeah,
really...
exactly. I don't think they worked it out ahead of time. I think Tyrion weighed what he knows about Bronn before that was what he was thinking. When it said the idea came to him, I think he thought, I think I can swing Bronn here. I think Bronn will come to my rescue. But I personally think they didn't do a very good job of handling Bronn. In way too many instances, they let him get too close to Tyrion. Who was the one that carried Tyrion up the mountain when he couldn't walk any longer? It was Bronn. Why is Bronn in this hall? Bronn doesn't have any business being in this hall right now. They could have avoided this by just keeping the two apart and not letting Bronn get this involved in things.
Goes to what I was saying about not letting him be a guest of the Eyrie, because he's too good at influencing people.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
It's worked with Bronn. Bronn is a sellsword. He'll sell his sword,
Yeah.
So Kat's going to be mad at Lysa. She's been played, and the end result is potentially good for Tyrion, and it's definitely bad for Kat.
Yep. Lose-lose for
either
Kat.
way, yeah, it's a lose-lose situation for Kat. But it is a win-lose situation for Tyrion.
Yes.
And until this, he was in a lose-lose situation.
That's a good point.
He didn't have any way out of this. But my question is, why didn't Tyrion just demand trial by combat from the get-go? Why suffer in the cells?
Yeah. That is a real... That maybe should go in pedantry.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying. Because I can't think... I know we were joking about maybe Bronn needed some rest if they did plan that ahead of time. Just give me a week.
Well, true. He's just carried a dwarf up the last 600 feet of a mountain. Yeah.
But...
Yeah, it literally could be that. I mean, if they really had worked it out,
yeah.
Bronn really might have said, look, I'll do it for you, but man, I need a couple of days to recuperate because I am shot.
Yeah, it didn't... Tyrion's state of mind didn't come across that way while he was down in the cells.
Yeah, exactly. What you said about what he said to Maud. Oh, what is it I want to say to Lysa,
Yeah.
I guess that could be his state, that he was frazzled and, malnourished and exhausted. It did, but it felt like it wasn't thought through as a plan.
Right.
In the way that it would have been if he and Bronn, the whole way up the mountain, had been saying, okay, and on the 7th day, I will get an audience with Lysa,
Yes.
and... You mentioned that Bronn had to be in the hall, but I guess not. I mean, you could say, okay, well, if it can't be Jaime Lannister, I'd like it to be my friend Bronn. Could you go get him for me?
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
He's a lot closer.
They could have sent Bronn packing, Why is Bronn still hanging out at the Eyrie? Pay him his money and let him be on his way.
If I were Kat, I would have said, how much is he offering you? Well, I can give you like 10% to just leave right now. You won't have to fight anyone. All right, background. Trial by combat. It has genuine precedent in the real world, in Germanic law particularly. It was primarily used to settle civil disputes. The two plaintiffs would fight it out. It wasn't really used that much in criminal cases like this, so there isn't much precedent for that. Purportedly, the Holy Roman Emperor banned trial by combat in 1300 after observing that the physically weak seemed to lose more often than not.
No.
Yes, it's true. It's surprising to me that after how many thousand years since the wall was built?
6 to 8, I think.
The Lords, 8,000? The Lords of Westeros still haven't spotted that same thing.
Although, I will say, in this chapter, Lynn Corbray says, when all the lords and knights are vying for the honor of killing Tyrion, he says, the gods favor the man with the just cause, yet often that turns out to be the man with the surest sword. We all know who that is.
Yes. Yes.
So he's picked
Full
up
marks
on
to
it.
Lynn Corbray. He has, yes.
Now, and as far as trial by combat goes in Westeros, it's actually an Andal tradition carried from Essos when they invaded Westeros. Another option is a trial of sevens, which is linked to the faith of the seven. The Andals believe that if 7 champions fought on each side, the gods would feel more honored and thus would be more likely to see justice done. And there's a famous Trial of Sevens in the Dunk and Egg series.
Huh. That's interesting. So they weren't fights to the death, were they? I mean, like, there weren't 7 deaths or 13 deaths, potentially, to decide the fate of one person?
It can be. It goes until either the accusing side recants, submits and says, I take back my accusations, or the person who was accused dies, I guess.
Wow. A little bit more background on House Arryn. We know them fairly well by this point, but many members of the Houses of the Vales jumped at the chance to kill Tyrion. Just mentioning a few here for future reference. You probably don't have to remember them. I'm sure Tyrion will do that for you. House Woad, Sir Willis just laughed at the notion of Tyrion fighting. House Royce, as did Lord Nestor, but his son Alba Royce did volunteer. House Corbray, who you just mentioned, Sir Lyn Corbray, he claimed to be the best swordsman and so felt he should do the deed.
Yeah, if I was picking for Lysa, I would have chosen Lyn Corbray to be my champion.
Just because of his clever tongue?
He also has a really awesome Valyrian steel sword called Lady Forlorn.
Oh, nice.
That he was bequeathed it by his father, despite the fact that Lyn's older brother Lionel Corbray is actually the lord of the household.
Yeah. So now I've got visions of Bronn and Tyrion marching back down the mountain, dragging a Valyrian sword behind. House Hunter, Lord Ian, despite his gout, offered his sword. Many others also did.
I actually looked up the young knight with the green viper sigil. That is House Linderly. It doesn't say who is of House Linderly, but House Linderly is.
That's a good find, because I looked that up and couldn't find it. That's why I didn't mention it.
I don't know who. I don't know which member of House Linderly he is, though.
Right, yeah. So just to mention the lineage of House Arryn is just a little bit tenuous. Lysa was Jon's 3rd wife. His first died along with their baby in her first childbirth. The second wife died childless of an illness. So Jon only had Robert Arryn. That's the only child he's ever managed to successfully produce, and Robert's not the strongest. Jon himself had 2 siblings, a brother Ronald, who died not long after becoming a father to a boy, Elbert. But Jon's nephew Elbert was Jon's heir until he was killed by Mad King Aerys as a compatriot of Brandon Stark. When Brandon Stark went to King's Landing and was killed, Elbert Arryn was with him and he died too.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
But Jon and Ronell have a sister, Elise, who had 9 kids. But would you believe 8 of them were girls and only 1 was a boy? He died young. The 8 daughters have not produced very much. They've got like 8 kids between them and only 2 male sons between that whole lot. And of course, because they were daughters who married, neither of those boys is called Arryn.
Oh yeah, so it's a thin line on the male side here for the Arryn family.
All the eggs are in the one sweet Robin basket, which is not great.
Crazy as it might be.
Yeah. So, comparison with the TV show, the moon door is in the floor in the TV show. It's in a much more orthodox place in the book, like in the middle of a wall.
Yep.
Tyrion's reminiscence about his first visit to the High Hall is merged with Cat's previous arrival in the Eyrie. If you remember in the show, they arrived together.
Yes.
So Cat's arrival and Tyrion's sharp mouth were at the same time. Much of the spoken word was kept. Maud is perhaps not quite as nasty in the TV show as he was in the book. The later scene in the hall is very well captured in the TV show. Robert Arryn is present in the show, and Tyrion's list of crimes is bawdier and funnier, as I mentioned. Otherwise, it's lifted straight from the book.
All right.
So pedantry, we've actually touched on a couple of these. Maud's abuse of Tyrion is pretty extreme. If you're a big guy smashing a little guy around the head in a cell with an open door, the chances of him getting knocked out are high. And you should be
One of the
more
times
careful.
when he whacked him, he landed, almost fell out of the wall.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Maud is not up to the job. The job of a jailer is not very complicated. You've got to stop them escaping and keep them alive.
Right.
That's it. And he looks like he could only do half of that routinely.
Yeah. Especially since this is a highborn son of the, as Tyrion puts it, most powerful lord in the kingdom.
Right. If they could see my face now, I've got my eyebrows are up and I'm like, yes, what you said. Correct.
It's the same face that Cat made when Bronn said, I'll stand for the dwarf.
Yeah. But seriously, why are they laughing at the disadvantaged man for asking for trial by combat if you can name a champion?
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as he said Jaime Lannister, I hope they all went, oh, I feel kind of stupid for laughing now. Because he's going to come and kick our ass, whoever we are.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. I don't understand what happened there.
Yeah.
Because it's not like anybody expected Lysa to fight her own battle.
Right.
Literally, they spent like paragraphs discussing who wanted to be her champion. No one thought,
exactly.
Oh, wait, he can pick a champion too.
So news and notes, did you see that Hafthor Bjornsson just set a new world record for the deadlift?
I did. In fact, I tweeted it out.
Oh, you did?
So
did you see the video?
I did, yeah.
Oh my giddy godfathers. That man is built like nothing I've ever seen before.
Like a mountain,
maybe? He is like a mountain. I mean, he is. So Hafthor Bjornsson is the guy who played the mountain in the later seasons of... in the later seasons or in the earlier seasons? I think in the later seasons. I don't think he was the original mountain.
Okay.
I think it was the later seasons. But he is colossal. He's 6'9" and 450 pounds.
That's a big dude.
and his waist is smaller than mine. I mean, he's. but my waist is smaller than his thighs.
Yeah.
He lifted 501 kilograms,
which is
1,104 pounds.
Yeah, there you go.
And again, that's 1,086 pounds more than I'm curling. I'm so close. I'm so close behind you, Hafthor.
You're going to be full Thor.
Yeah, exactly. We should get him on. Although he's absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw his celebration after lifting like a car.
Seriously.
He was screaming in a guy's face and the guy was like, oh. Absolutely incredible. So good for you, Hafthor. I'm mightily impressed. And he said afterwards, I think I could have lifted quite a bit more, actually. He said, I mean, it was a new world record, so I just did what I had to do. But he said it didn't feel that bad. And the metal bar was bending like it was made of taffy. The thing was like... Absolutely amazing. What a guy. Yeah. I'm glad we got to know him through Game of Thrones.
Right, yeah.
Because, I mean, he was the world's strongest man, but I don't pay an awful lot of attention to the world's strongest man.
No, me either.
But he is a specimen, my God. All right, I'm just jealous.
Well, hey, you have things that he doesn't have. You've got a podcast, man.
Yeah, it's true. Podcasting grey hair in your face. Hafthor, if you come on the show, it was McKelly saying those things.
Great, now we've got Jason Momoa and Hafthor.
That'd be cool to have him on the show. That'd be just great. Hafthor, if you're listening, please come on the show. We would love to talk to you.
That would be
reach out to
awesome.
Us. Yeah. So in conclusion, Tyrion's got a chance.
So we're saying he's got a chance.
Yeah. And it definitely seems possible this was all a plan by Tyrion and Bronn.
Yeah.
If not directly planned, then certainly sufficiently hinted at that there's no great surprise that this is how it's fallen together.
I can definitely see Tyrion planting the seed after seed. They've had weeks together, and apparently Cat's not seen fit to separate them in any way. So
yeah, and Tyrion, I mean, like you said, his inner thoughts, he didn't commit these crimes unless
he's got an alter ego that doesn't know that he, this ego doesn't know that he did it. Maybe his other personality.
Yes, compartmentalized mind.
Right.
This Tyrion did it. I'm completely innocent.
Yeah, and
It's an interesting comparison of the two crimes, that they are very different in nature.
yeah, and
and
could
so
there be a third
perhaps-
party possibly?
Yeah.
And he's also unsure if his siblings are smart enough to use the situation for the opportunity to hang shame on the Starks, Arryns, and Tullys in some ways, because Cat's a Tully.
Right, yeah. No, yeah, I think it does reflect. If Tyrion gets thrown out of the moon door, that's bad news for Hoster Tully.
Oh, yeah.
Your two daughters just threw my son out of a door?
Yeah,
You're in
that
trouble.
wouldn't go very well.
I mean, Tywin Lannister would be mad if you threw him out of any door. Your own front door. He'd march on River Run.
I'm not so sure about Tyrion. Maybe
not.
Tyrion got kicked out of the front door of the Eyrie that just had stairs. I think Tywin would be over it. I think it's just the slight on the Lannister name that is the bigger issue here.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to conjecture, as Tyrion did, that the Vale might be being run by monsters now.
Yeah.
Not actually good people at all.
Seems like Lysa lets Robert do whatever he sees fit.
And actually, there's no better way to create a monster. There
Right.
really isn't. I mean, I think all humans are monsters when they're little, because they're selfish and they have no empathy
Sure.
and they have no concern for anyone. And if you don't engender that as a parent, your child will end up a monster.
Yeah, I can see the logic behind that theory. So, got anything else?
No, that's good.
All right. So, as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhall@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at @ghostharrenhall, or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
And if you like what we're doing, please leave us a review on iTunes or Podchaser. It's a great way to help us out. And of course, you can always tweet on Facebook about us too. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.